Good morning. I hope everyone's had a good week, an interesting week, and everyone is safe. I think we're all a little concerned of what's happening in many aspects of what's going on right now. But let's take a moment of pause, and let's look at a recipe that's very simple. I call it comfort food because it's got a lot of components in it that are really um, fun. It's a pretty dish in many respects. The presentation is good. And I think you'll probably enjoy putting this together. I put a couple flares in here for a little bit of color. Usually when this dish is made, stuffed peppers, it's made with one consistent color of green peppers. Green peppers are probably the most widely available of the peppers of any variety, jalapeno being second. But what I did is I kind of, if you will, copied the recipe, and I've kind of gone here a little bit more with colors in my peppers just because I like the presentation when I put it on the table. It's just my wife and I in Woodford having stuffed peppers, but if my children were here, I can assure you that one of them would have chose this color, would have choose this color, etc. I do have red peppers. I do not have blue peppers today. There is no significance whatsoever being sent with that message that I have a red pepper versus a blue pepper, because there isn't such a thing as a blue pepper in my kitchen. So no green peppers today. You'll find the green peppers are cheaper. Green pepper is usually about 79 cents per pepper. You need 3 of them for this recipe. You can also do what I did, which is I chose a yellow pepper, a red pepper, and an orange pepper. Now, why did I do that? They were on special. I knew that when I went into my Kroger click list that was what was going to be available. And I thought, what the heck, let's make it pretty. We left the green ones in for salad for later, but I chose these 3 peppers. And when I did, I think you'll find the dish with its pastel colors to be very, very nice. So I hope you enjoy it as well. So what I did this morning is I did my usual prep, because this recipe does take just short of an hour. We don't have an hour here to do this. We have to get back to our lives. But I think it's important that you can do these things ahead of time. You can make these peppers and you can enjoy them tonight, like I'm going to. You can have them for lunch if you want. You can stop by and get your complimentary bag on the sidewalk prepared at lunchtime. Or if you like, you can freeze these. Stuffed peppers freeze exceptionally well. I have froze them before. It's basically meat, rice, a little bit of cheese with a tomato base and a shell of the pepper that holds the components together, and just thaw it out, take it from a frozen state, put it in the oven. I think you'll appreciate and enjoy that. A little note, this week I also pulled 2 other recipes from my past and made them. I had fun this week with some recipes. My Panera broccoli cheese soup, which we had a while back. I had a request at the house to make that, so we made that. That was good. And froze some for some in the future. And then when we had made lasagna a while back, we made lasagna in shells wrapped up instead of the layer that we've done in the past. That worked out well too. That was in a frozen state in my oven. I thawed it out over a day. We had that last night with some tomato sauce. So don't ever let those recipes get away from you. You can always refer back to them, or you can take it out of the refrigerator or freezer if you have it waiting for you, ready to go. So the recipe, thank you, Brenda, for sending that out. Everyone should have it. There's not a whole lot of changes on here. If you have a pencil, you can write a few things down. You can substitute the protein in here if you prefer. Some people like their peppers with Italian sausage, ground sausage. You can do that, or a combination of ground beef and sausage. Some people, because they're concerned about the fat content that a beef or pork might bring into their dish, will also potentially choose ground turkey. Some people will use ground chicken, but ground turkey would be your alternative white protein for your dish here. So there's no change in the quantity, but if you want to go with frozen turkey or ground turkey, please, by all means, add that as a substitution. Another asterisk is looking at the long grain rice. There's kind of been a shift where a lot of people are going from what was known as white rice, jasmine rice for the most part, and then shifted it to what many feel is a better rice for everybody, and that is in your diet is brown rice. You can just note that brown rice takes a little bit of extra time to make. Instapot, here's a plug for Instapot. It's not a bad thing to do, to put into Instapot to get that done. But when you look at it, I did mine with white rice. This morning, got up, knocked it out in my Instapot. I'll show you it here in a second. It's kind of out of camera sight to the right of me for my prep. So the other thing in here that I think is pretty simple is you can put ground cloves of garlic, or you can use powdered garlic if you prefer. Your tomatoes, you can use stewed tomatoes, tomato sauce out of a can or a glass jar. The only thing I added in mine is I add a little bit of tomato paste. I think tomato paste adds another layer of flavor. I have a tendency to do that. Kroger did not have any parsley, so I will not be using parsley in this recipe. I did have some seasoning. And I'm going to use a combination of mozzarella cheese shredded and a combination of sharp cheddar. Why am I going to do that? I have two that are open in my pantry, or not in my pantry, in my refrigerator cheese drawer. So the reason I chose them is it's another thing of presentation. White mozzarella is kind of bland. Adding a little cheddar, so you get a little orange, a little white, adds a little bit of zing, if you will, to the presentation of what you're preparing for your family, friends, or guests. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hair-free, fly-free hair and turn it away, and I'm going to turn you to what I'm preparing and continue the conversation. Hopefully, I will not lose the camera phone in my my dish like I did last month, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm turning away. Here is the recipe. All right, so hopefully everyone is seeing that. Brenda, are you seeing it? Brenda, are you seeing what I'm cooking? All right. Hopefully that is the case.
Looking great.
All right. So you are seeing it now.
Yes.
All right. Good.
Perfect.
Thanks, Brenda. I don't have my executive producer here.
Okay.
Woodford is all thumbs and no talk, so can't have him help me either. All right.
Right.
Back to it. So what I did this morning is I preheated my oven to 400. I got a glass dish, and in that glass dish, I put about a half an inch of fresh water. And then I took my peppers, and here's my peppers like this. So when I got them home from Kroger, this is what they look like. And I ran a knife down the center. I separated them out, and I cleared the cavity out. Why do I clear the cavity out? Because that's where your stuffing for these stuffed peppers is going to reside for the final cook. So I cleaned both out. I did it slightly different than the recipe. I cut mine directly in half. This recipe cuts basically the top off. I like to cut them in half because the portions are smaller, more manageable, and it's just as nice to not have to throw out any part of the pepper when you slice them. basically right down the center, gently, open it up, clear the cavity out, and then you've got it. You put these upside down like the 3 peppers are, the orange, the red, and the yellow. And what I've done there is in that water is I put it in at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes with some foil, took the foil off. They're manageable. I can take them and I can turn them over and everything is perfect. One little cooking tip. Sometimes on the bottom of a pepper, when you look at it this way, you'll see that one hump of the pepper is a little bit bigger than the other. So when you put it on the cutting board, it tilts. If you want straight for the fill, you can look at the side, see that the bump is a little bit elevated in one side, and just slice that off. Now I have a perfect square pepper on the bottom that will contain everything I need in it, but it's not going to fall off my cutting board or off my glass dish when I'm filling it. It's going to stay standard, it's going to stay firm, and it's going to work exactly the way I want it to do. So after I've done that, I take the water out and I place the peppers back up, and I get ready here to put a little salt in each of the peppers. And I also put a little pepper in mine as well. You don't need to use a lot of salt in here because the meat already has salt, but it is a nice thing to add. So a little bit of fresh ground pepper. If you want, you can put Italian seasoning in there, Italian herbs, a little garlic powder if you want. I'm going plain. I'm just going to do salt and pepper, and then we're all set. So I'm going to set this aside, pretty dish, but those are ready to go. Why do I do 20 minutes of pepper pre-cook in the water? A pepper has a membrane on it that softens up a little bit when it's cooked at 400 degrees in a little bit of water. So basically, it's a little bit more flexible. It gives a little bit more, but it still holds the form of what I want, which is the walls to contain the stuffing that's going to go in here. So it sits perfectly on my shelf. We're ready to go. And just that 20 minutes took the firmness of the membrane of the pepper and made it so that it's a little bit easier when you go to eat it. And it'll hold together when you cook it to finalize the recipe. So the next thing I do is I work on getting my filling ready for the preparation. So it talks about cooking the onion first. So I sliced the onion and I cooked it. And then it also suggests before you put in the beef to cook, you separate the side of the onion over here. That way you're not mixing a lot of things together until you really need to. So what I did here is I cooked the onions first in a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of butter. And then after that was pretty much translucent, about 5 minutes later, then I went over here and I started cooking my ground beef. It's a pound of ground beef. You can do a pound of pork. You can do a combination of those. Or once again, you can do ground turkey, whatever you prefer. Takes 2 or 3 minutes to turn from pink until a nice brown. And then you're all set with what you're trying to accomplish here. So here's my onions. Here's my already finished ground beef. For those that are interested, this has no hormones, and it is grass-fed beef. So there's no fillers, nothing. So you can see there's a little bit of translucent onions in there, and you're all set. The other thing that I like about cooking a pepper a little bit, I know some that are on this call don't care for peppers because it's not kind to your GI tract. I think what you'll find is cooking the peppers ahead of time takes a little bit of that punch out of digesting the pepper. And I really like peppers. They don't seem to affect me, but there are people where it does affect, and you want to be, cognizant of that so it doesn't affect you. So onions are cooked. The ground beef is cooked. I've mixed them together. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put the remaining items in here so that we can go ahead and stuff the peppers and prepare them for their final dish. So I'm going to set the ground beef aside, and I'm going to mix a little bit of my tomatoes and my, that's a good juicer. So I've got my ground tomatoes. Here's my paste. It's one of the few substitutions that I made in this recipe. I just think it adds another level to it. It's only, a simple 6-ounce thing of tomato paste, and it adds a little bit of a additional flavor to what we're using as a component here to stuff the peppers. So that's taken care of, and we're all set. So we stir in the tomatoes. We stir in half of the tomato sauce, about a half a cup, so about 4 ounces. Now we're going to take the cooked rice, the parsley, Italian seasoning, a little bit of salt and pepper to taste, to combine it with it before we stuff the pepper in its final stage. So set that aside. Here is the cylinder from my Instapot, and you can see I have already cooked my white rice. So it's ready to go. It's gotten a little cold, but that's fine in this recipe because it goes in the oven and warms up when you're ready to serve it. But breaks up real nice. You can make extra cups if you want. You can make 3 cups, freeze a couple extra cups, and you always have rice for a side dish. In this recipe, I made a third of a cup or 3/4 of a cup so I can stuff my peppers. So there's another plug for an Instapot. In 5 minutes, I had rice, and in my opinion, it's probably the best rice ever coming out of the device. I used to make it in a pan with a little bit of water. This is pressurized. It really breaks down the rice real nice. So it says we've stirred in the tomatoes and the sauce. Now we want to put in the cooked rice, the parsley, the Italian seasoning, and the seasoned peppers into here to make the filling. So by the way, that tastes good. All right. So now we got the rice in with the tomatoes. We're making a nice base here that goes in the stuffing. Incorporate all that. Now, I like garlic, so I didn't chop any this morning. But I'm going to put a little garlic in there. I'm going to put a little bit of Italian herb. You can get it pre-ground. You can get it like I'm grinding it right now, like ground pepper. But that adds another layer of Italian flavoring to your dish. Every dish always seems to need a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. And there goes my faithful dog, letting the woman who's delivering my mail know that she's on alert. So there you go. The tomatoes are incorporated with the rice. Now you put in the already cooked beef and onions. You stir this up now, and this is your filling. This is the beauty that goes into your peppers. I keep on hitting that. I'm sorry. It's probably making you a little dizzy. Not that I'm already dizzy already. So there you go. So there you go. You've got it. You're all set to fill each of the peppers. So I'm going to move the peppers over here, get them ready to fill. I'm going to set them aside for one little extra chore. I'm going to add a little base and a little bit of water so that my peppers don't stick to the glass surface. A little bit of water in there, a little bit of base here, and that'll be fun. So we set that aside and we start stuffing the peppers. So let's do a yellow one, let's do an orange one, and let's do a red one. So we're fair in all the colors. Before we do that, today's tool is this little tool that I really, really like, and I have two versions of it. So my tongs are what I use to take out things that are hot. And when these peppers are red hot, I don't have to touch them if they're red hot. I just use the tongs and I move it back and forth. This is silicone. It goes up to 500 degrees. It's a great tool. It's my tool of the month for you. And when I'm done with it, I just pull this little tab on the back and it goes back to its original size. This one is another tong, but you gotta use this little thing here. And I find that tab on the other one I like better. Silicone too, and it'll easily pick up a hot item. And when you're done, you just put it back to its site. So here are your peppers. Here's your stuffing. All you're doing here is, let me put this in the camera. All you're doing here is putting it over. You got them in there. I would mound it a little bit because we got plenty of good ingredients there. But that is your stuffed pepper. I mean, it's perfectly got tomatoes, rice, beef, onions, and it goes right in the pot. So then I take a similar color, and this is already ready to rock. And you just press that down in there firmly so it gets all in the cavity and the crevice of your blanched pepper that's ready to go, and then let it mound a little bit. It'll look real pretty when that cheese melts on it after it hits in the oven. So there's your yellow ones. So let's do the red. See, you got an empty cavity. You're filling it up with, a pound of beef and, a little bit of rice. It doesn't have to be perfectly, clean on the sides of the pepper, because it's what you're doing to put that together. Now this pepper also had a little bit of a bump. I sliced that off, and now when that goes into the glass dish to cook, it's not going to tip over. It's going to be a perfect symmetry to stay flat and square on my Pyrex dish when I put it in at 350 degrees to cook. So now, see how quick that was? I've already got 2 of those peppers stuffed. That's 4 halves. So my wife and I will each have a nice little half tonight, or maybe we'll each have 2 halves, and then I'll have tomorrow before my important football game, I'll have lunch. And that'll be perfect. So there's another one. It's staying up, it's not tipping over. And I have just enough in here to put the finishing touches. And I'm firmly pressing down into all corners to make sure the pepper gets in there. I'm going to wash my hands. But most of your work's already done before you get into stuffing. So as you can see, there's not much left. You set that aside, and voila is your finished product. Aren't those pretty? I really like the red, the orange, and yellow. Really, really is nice. They're on sale at Kroger this week. Not to plug Kroger any more than I always do. But Kroger has them on special this week for 99 cents, your color choice. I also do them in green. I don't have any objections to green, but see how they're perfectly separated. They're stuffed. They're ready to go. So what I do now is I take this and I put it into a preheated oven at 350. So when it goes in there, the beef filling will start to warm up and warm through. So it's real nice. And you're all set there. To keep it from burning and keep the moisture in, I would put foil around that in there for about 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes, take it back out carefully, set it on the side, take your sharp cheese, or you can do just mozzarella, put those together, sprinkle them on top. I'm not going to do that for you right now because I'm not cooking this right now. I'm going to cook it later tonight for dinner. But that's basically, it goes in there. You want that cheese to melt. It'll encrust, if you will, the entire stuffed pepper with that sprinkled cheese. You put it in the oven. You do not need to put the foil on it this time because it's heated inside, underneath, and all you want to do with that cheese is finish it so it melts and makes a real nice pocket to eat. A fork and a knife and a nice salad, and you're all set. So that is the stuffed pepper recipe, right on time, half an hour.
Gary, this is something you could really make ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely.
Could you even freeze these like this?
Oh yeah, it's one of those. I always look at what does Stouffer's do and do well. They freeze lasagna. They freeze ziti, however you want to pronounce it, and they also do stuffed peppers. People don't like to spend the time to do this. It's really not that time consuming. But stuffed peppers is one of Stouffer's leading recipes in their frozen food section. It's one of their top 5 sellers.